This is my first year of experience with this 2025 BMW GS 1300 adventure motorcycle. Technically, it's been just over a year. I took delivery of the bike in March of 2025. However, I spent several months just getting it with all the accessories and everything the way I wanted it before I really started putting it through its paces. For those modifications that I did to the bike, and there are videos on every one of these mods you can see on my channel. The first one were the lunch boxes or the side saddlebags, and I thought it was going to take quite a while for them to show up, but they actually came within, I think, a week or two after picking up the bike. Eventually decided that I should have gotten the beer chest or the top box as well. So that was ordered later. It didn't actually show up until after Baron's last ride, but it's on there now, so I've been using it since then. And then I have the bag liners for all three as well. Keeping in line with extra storage space, I also added more recently a couple tank side bags. So these little kidney-shaped bags were added. They go into the pannier mounts on the side, which for the 25s, I think was only available on the triple black. A lot of those early modifications were with electronics. The first one being the Garmin Zumo XT2 navigation device, adding the Valentine 1, which uses a quad lock mount with vibration isolation. And then I also have a quad lock with vibration isolation for the phone mount, and then running the power obviously for all those. I also did a thermal vision system on this one. It's an updated one from the old one I'd used on the cross-country record ride years ago on the S1K. It's more of a smaller kind of prototype lab one with the housing. So I just use a GoPro mount up here, but I mounted the thermal vision there, and then that camera output goes to the phone. So I basically use my phone for the display of that FLIR camera as opposed to having yet another screen clogging up my dash. Because I'm on the taller side, I also did the lowering kit with the different peg mounts for both sides that give me just a little bit less bend in the knees, and I changed the seat to be the higher setting. So I didn't have to buy any parts for it. You just go underneath, as the video shows, and you flip the little levers to make it sit in the highest position. That way, for someone tall like me, I get the least bend in the knees. It's the most comfortable. The only downside is this is the comfort model bike or whatever, where it's 2 inches lower than the normal one. And so even with the 2-inch raised setting as it's going on down the road over 20 miles an hour, I still can stub my toes on the pavement when I'm going around turns. And for personalization, I also added my normal Axe CNC machined aluminum badges to the sides of the tank, and my No Limits, No Regrets stickers to all three of the boxes. So that should be good for at least 40, 50 horsepower just there. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I started out on Harleys, evolved to choppers, I've done sport bikes, so I've had all the various kind of bikes. Adjusting to this specific bike, more of an adventure upright position, was probably one of the biggest adjustments that I had to make in terms of riding style. Probably because it's less about having to accommodate something weird and no longer having to accommodate it, such as being hunched over one way or hunched back the other way, or your knees up at your chest like a monkey fucking a football that you don't have to do anymore. It's just, it's different when you've spent your whole life trying to cram yourself on a bike in a way that fits it properly to just be comfortable sitting like you would on a bike. It seems like it would be easier, but it was one of the biggest adjustments I've made. The thing is just bulletproof. It always works. Now I know it's new and it's modern technology and all that, but talk about a change from the old shovelhead Harley, where if you made it somewhere okay, you weren't gonna make it home without a new oil leak or some part vibrating off or something going wrong. It's extremely comfortable. It's hard to really classify what do they do to the seat to make it that comfortable. Is it the shape of it? Is it how it fits you? Is it the sponginess of it or the coating? I don't really know. All I know is that it's a really comfortable bike in terms of ergonomics, how you sit on it. Any issues I have with comfort are just because of my aging body, like the lower back or the tailbone or something. But surprisingly, even with those pretty major deals, I'm able to get on this. I mean, I rode 14 hours home from Phoenix here a few weeks ago, and yeah, it was, you know, you're sore when you get home, but 14 hours in the saddle on any bike is going to be rough, and really wasn't that bad. It gets really good mileage. I think high 30s is generally what I see, and I tend to push the speed pretty high. The tank is 7.9 gallon, so you're able to get somewhere between 300 and 400 miles out of a tank, depending on how fast you're driving, if you're ramping up and down or just kind of cruising. It's not going to be as torquey as like the 121-inch V-twin in the chopper. It's not going to have quite the power of one of the sport bikes where you're able to do 190 mile an hour on it. But for what it is, it's got decent power. It pulls, you're able to get around stuff fast as you want. I think the most I've seen on it is 140 mile an hour, and that's probably getting kind of near the top end of it, but it can cruise right along at well over 100 happily. And however, I will say on this bike, because it's got the bags and you might have them full of luggage, if you're cruising at somewhere north of 100 mile an hour and it's windy out, you might feel a little bit of buffeting. It doesn't feel dangerously unstable, or it hasn't for me yet, but you will notice a little bit of instability more than you would on, say, a sport bike at that speed. You have plenty of storage between the two lunch boxes and the beer chest, and you've got the little side bags, so I don't have to put a backpack on that's going to cause that pinch nerve in the upper trap here to hurt again. You know, everything is pretty well contained. Yeah, it's still, you know, you go for a 2-3 week trip, you're having to cram things in, but this is the first bike I've had with hard saddlebags. Before this, the most I'd ever had was the chopper, and my old Harley, and I guess that Predator chopper had like a soft leather bag, so you could put a little bit in it. But as far as like a hard bag kind of touring type bike, this is my first experience, and I gotta admit I've gotten kind of spoiled with it. It's just such an easy bike to enjoy in every way. It's got, for cold weather, there's heated grips, there's a heated seat. That's all done through the handlebars. Even if you have a passenger, there's a heated passenger seat. I think there's a little switch over here you have to click. The adaptive cruise control is something that I kind of wrinkled my nose at a little bit at first, because I always get a bit concerned that the electronics of machines like this, especially a motorcycle, bad enough with a car, the more they take over, the less alert you might be while you're driving or riding, which if you're not alert, you're gonna get in a crash. And that's especially bad on two wheels. However, for these long distance rides I've been doing, it is super nice to just set the adaptive cruise control at 99 or whatever and just let it cruise on through traffic. You just have to really pay attention and not, for example, don't be sitting there with your hands behind your head and then you get in trouble and you have to reach up and grab that brake quick. Maybe you don't have an iron grip on the throttle, but keep your hand close so that you can grab that brake. No, it may not thunder or sparkle like the chopper. It may not handle or brake like a sport bike, but it does so much more that those other bikes couldn't do. As far as road trips with this bike, I've already been all over the country on it, and all my little trips are videos or video series on my channel you can check out. It started while I was getting all the electronics and bags and that figured out, with little trips up through the hill country to Austin and back, just to kind of get familiar with it. It was a new experience. And the first big ride I did with it was the Baron's Last Ride, which is the newest movie. You can find that on the channel as well. And that was 5,000 miles going from here to Florida, up through Georgia, Nashville, to Iowa, to Colorado, and back to Enchanted Rock and home to spread Baron's ashes everywhere across the country where sunshines were. Then I took it another 3,000 miles in December. I spent Christmas in Miami and then did my birthday in Lauderdale. I think when I left Mobile, it was like 34 or 5 degrees that morning. So I was very grateful to have the heated grips and seat on this thing. And I've done other little trips from here to Austin, Dallas, Corpus, Houston, just little weekend getaways. And then I just finished another 5,000 mile adventure where I went from here to Graceland and then to Chicago and rode Route 66 out to LA and then came back through San Diego, Phoenix and home. So the bike has already been from West Coast to East Coast, from mountains to plains to beach, from 34 degrees to 113 pulling into Phoenix to pouring rain. It's seen it all. Now, one thing that this bike is really made to do that I haven't really tried is adventure riding. And I know it's kind of a long-standing joke, the guys that ride adventure bikes never take them off-road. The only time I've really had it off pavement has been in Daytona Beach when I got stuck in the sand out there because it was wet, and on a gravel road for a little while in Iowa. So that's one thing that I would like to look more at doing. Being on the bigger side, it's not going to be as nimble through rocky riverbeds and stuff like that as one of their smaller models would be, more enduro-focused bikes. But it does have the capability of doing some cool off-road stuff. But it's amazing to see guys on these bikes that are jumping over, logs in their path, going through the mud and the rocks and riverbeds and water that's washing up over them as they're driving through it. So I know the bike is capable of it. It's a whole level of talent this bike has that I haven't even touched on. It's pretty amazing to think that this bike can do everything I've already enjoyed with it in addition to all that. So I definitely need to get out and test the water, so to speak, a little bit in that respect. Now, of course, if you're looking to buy one of these, one of the first questions you're gonna have is, what problems have you had with it? What's broken on it so far? For the most part, this thing, as I said earlier, has been just bulletproof. Now, the one thing when I picked it up that the sales guy identified first was that the key didn't seem to have the range of some of the other keys and bikes that he's seen. So when you have the key fob, the ring antenna is under the seat. So the closer it is to that, the better. Now, if I have the key in my pocket, it's fine. But if you put the key in, say, this bag up front, or if it's in the saddlebag back here, it may not pick it up. And what's sort of frustrating about it is if you're going down the road and suddenly the screen flashes and says, key is out of range, you can't restart it without having it closer. Well, in your mind, hey, it's in this bag, or it's back here, it's in my pocket. But you can't help but panic a little bit thinking, shit, did it fall out of my pocket or what? So it's not a big deal, it's just kind of an annoyance, and it's kind of intermittent too. There are times where I could set it, over on that car and it would start fine, and then the next time it fusses at me because it's in this case. A few months ago, the dash said that the battery was low in the key fob. So I changed that, thinking it might improve. Didn't seem to make a ton of improvement. So I did mention it the last time it was in for service to look at it, but we were kind of in a rush because I was trying to get the tires changed and everything else done, and I had like 3 days before I had to leave for the Route 66 ride, so they didn't really have a chance to troubleshoot it to see is there something wrong with the ring antenna or not. But again, this is one of those intermittent things which makes it really hard to troubleshoot. It's not the end of the world, it's just annoying. And as I look for patterns, that's just one item of several that have shown up that are not actual problems, but it's almost like the brain loses contact with the world around it once in a while. So one of the things that has showed up a couple of times has been low tire pressure. And you go to it on the screen and then a minute later it's fine. So I don't know if it's just losing contact with it or what, but obviously if you watch Barron's Last Ride, you'll know I fought that rear tire leaking that entire last section of the ride. So I'm always concerned when I see something like that. There's another error that showed up once about the emergency call system, then never saw it again. I did see a little bit of smoke at startup on this after one of the services. And when I talked to the service guy, he pointed out that if you store it on the side stand, which I do, you will get a little bit of oil because it's at an angle, right? So you'll get a little bit of oil that collects in the left side jug. And so when you start it up, that little bit of oil is maybe what you see coming out the exhaust pipe. So that's not a big deal. It's just easier for me to use the side stand as opposed to the center stand, but to each their own. They did a valve adjustment at 12,000 miles. No notes of concern with that. I did have my left mirror come loose on me on the Route 66 ride, but that was a $5 wrench fix, so not a big deal there either. The only real, what I'll call, warranty issue failure kind of item was on Route 66. Was it up by the Grand Canyon or maybe Oatman Highway? The suspension gave me 3 errors that showed up, and it said, you can continue, but get this looked at as soon as you can. And basically what's happening is this bike, when you get over 20 mile an hour, it raises the suspension a couple inches just to give you that extra clearance. According to the forums, the guys say that it's a very common point of failure for these is an R&R pump. So basically there's a pump down there somewhere in the suspension system that raises it those 2 inches. It can fail, so they just have to replace it. So it's not a big deal. It's not some weird gremlin that nobody's going to be able to solve or fix. They know it's an issue and it's under warranty. So the next time I take it in for service, which should be in about 500 miles, I'll have them look at that and replace that, and I should be tip-top again. And it's not the end of the world now. It's just that you have a little bit less clearance when you're going down the road. So in the cases where I was like in Oatman in the twisties, I kept dragging my toes more than normal. And if you happen to, go around turns fast with it lowered, you're just going to have less clearance at your toes. And for being close to 19,000 miles, that be the only thing that I really have to worry about, and it's covered by warranty and easy to fix, that's pretty good to me. All in all, I could not be happier than I am with this bike. I'm impressed beyond expectations with it. I mean, the comfort, the practicality of it, so easy to ride, the storage space, the features, the power, the fuel economy and storage. It's just an amazing machine. And I've learned over the last year why BMW truly is the gold standard for adventure bikes like this. The GS1300 adventure bike is the Swiss Army knife of motorcycles. It just does all these things so amazingly well. Ausgezeichnet, BMW. Ausgezeichnet. If you haven't done so, please click below to subscribe, click the little bell for notifications, and let's live for today.